Okay, hello Cloud Gurus and welcome to this lab, where we're going to set things up so that we don't have to keep accessing GCP with our overpowered administrator account. Now I want to point out that we are still going to be granting quite a lot of power to this account that we're going to use, but the key thing is that this user account will not have the power to upgrade the billing account to become a paying one. So this really limits our risk while we're learning. Now, for a production setup though, we would really consider using even more restrictive privileges than what we're going to be granting here. And exactly how you do that is going to depend on how empowered or encumbered you want your dev or DevOps teams to be. But we'll take a closer look at that when we cover billing access control later on in the course. For now though, there's one key role we want to take a look at, and that's the one called billing account user. Now, roles are collections of permissions to use or manage GCP resources. And in this case, the purpose of the billing account user is to be able to link projects to billing accounts. Now, you can grant this role at either the organization or billing account level, but since we only have a billing account and not yet an organization, that's what we're going to do in this lab. Now, a key thing that they point out in the documentation is that this role has very restricted permissions, so you can grant it broadly, typically in combination with project creator. These two roles allow a user to create new projects linked to the billing account on which the role is granted. So we'll see how this plays out in the lab. Now, before you start doing this lab, you need to get the email address of a Google account that you control, and one that's not the admin account that we created when we signed up for GCP. This account is going to be the user account that we use to do a lot of stuff in GCP. So if you want, you could use a pre-existing Google account that you've made, or if you have an email address that hasn't had a Google account created for it, you could do that now, or you could choose to make a completely separate new Gmail account. Any of these options could be fine, but I do want to warn you that you want to be able to control this account, so you might not want to use an email address that'll fall under a lot of security controls set up by your organization. And please make sure that you've got two-factor authentication set up for this particular account. Alright, so to start off with, I want you to log onto the GCP console as the administrative account that we've been using. We're not going to log in with this user account just yet. So go ahead and fire up an incognito window, and I'll see you in the console. Okay, so now here we are in the console. And remember, we get here by going to console.cloud.google.com and signing in. Right now I'm signed in as the admin account that we created with our GCP account. But what we want to do is effectively to control the billing, so let's go to that section now. Now you've probably already got this My Trial Billing account selected, but if not, you can just drop this thing down and either select it or go to Manage Billing Accounts and select it in the list. Now remember, I've hidden this info panel just to make a bit more space on the screen, but right now what we want to do is on that info panel, so I'm going to show that again. And now we can see that there is one billing account administrator attached to this billing account. And of course, that's the admin account that we're logged in as right now. But the reason that we're here is because we want to delegate some of this authority to another account. And in particular, if we look in this role dropdown, what we want to grant is the billing account user role. Alright, now enter the email address of the Google account that we're going to be using as our GCP user. When you've done that, you can hit Add. And quite immediately we see the update. And that's pretty much it, really. We've just granted the ability for this user to link GCP projects to this billing account. So let's check that out. We'll sign out of this account and sign in as our user account. Now, since this is the first time I've logged in as this particular user, I agree to the terms of service. Now, since I logged out and logged back in, it tried to go back to the same URL of that admin project. But since the only authority that we delegated was to link projects to that trial account, we're not authorized to view anything in the admin project. So if we select a project here, we have none. But let's see what happens when we create a new project. Now if we create a project called My User Project, We wait a bit for it to get created. Once we've waited for that project to be created, we can drop the Select a Project drop-down again and select My User Project. And here we see we've automatically been linked up to that trial account. Now we could just dismiss this, but let's see what happens if we try to upgrade. And here's exactly what we wanted. Error, you do not have sufficient permissions to view this page. We're not able to upgrade that particular billing account. So let's dismiss this now and head over to the billing dashboard so we can see what it shows. Now it won't show us the details of the individual billing account, but if we go back to this main spot here, we can see that there are 3 projects attached to this trial billing account. If we show the info panel while it's selected, we can see the administrator and the user like before. But the UI that we were using before to grant those privileges is of course gone. When we look at the projects, we only see this user project that we just created. Now because this GCP user account owns this project, we can do things like disable the billing or change it to use a different billing account, but it also means that if someone has access to this GCP user account, they can control this user project as much as they want. So this seems to be a good time to remind you that you really need to have two-factor authentication set up for this user account as well. Now there's one last thing I want to show in this lab. So to do that, let's go back to the dashboard and grab the URL for this particular project. Now let's sign out and sign back in as our admin account and take a look at what happens. Here we've been switched back to the admin project. So let's paste the URL to the user project, and we see that we are not authorized to view that. So if we go back to the admin project and go to billing, and manage billing accounts, we can see the same information that 3 projects are attached to the billing account, but one of them is not one of ours. We can't even see it in this list. The lesson here is that owning a project and being able to control its resources is completely separate from being able to control the billing account attached to that project. Alright, well that's it for this lab. So if you have any questions for me, please let me know. If not, please feel free to move on to the next lecture. Thank you.